start putting the bits and pieces together. I've got to warn you, this is not the best way of doing it, but then again, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because I know there's a better way of doing things. But what I'm trying to say is that if we encode our usernames like this, we may accidentally encode one of the letters to a comma, and then we would have 2 commas in our string, and well, that would be fatal really, because it wouldn't give us, it would have 3 words and not 2. So we have to be careful that we don't produce a comma, or maybe we could use a different separator here, so maybe a space, maybe an @ symbol, something that can't possibly be generated by our key when we encode something. Now the first thing I'm going to do is actually get rid of my user text file, because what I want to do is have everything in there encoded. So when am I going to encode things? Well, it's going to be here. When I get the username, what I want to do is encode it. Now I could type username equals encode decode, and then type username and key here. Now one thing I've got to mention, I'm using the key, I am not passing it in. I'm going to keep it in the main program. It is going to be something called a global variable, and I've promised to talk about scope and global variables. The lesson's worked out. I just need to finish this series before I tell you what these really do. So that is going to be a global variable for my program. So although I haven't mentioned what key is in here, it will work. Now the thing is that username is going to be this. So in the line above this, username was that. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it there. And that means that I can have the whole thing on just one line. So I can get rid of that. So I'm passing in a parameter. It wants some text, but this function does give me some text. And in fact, it'll do a lot more. It will prevent me from having spaces or characters in my text. I'm going to do the same with password. So let's show you what I did again. So I could type password equals encode decode. So I'm using this function here, which takes 2 parameters, the plain text, which is the word I want to convert, that's password, and the key. But the password says here, password equals whatever that is. So if I copy that and place it instead of password here, that's exactly the same thing, but I don't need that line of code. So that looks quite difficult to do, but what's going to happen is that username is going to be encoded, and password is going to be encoded. So when we get to this point, username and password are going to be joined with the comma. So that was quite a challenging task. So let's see if I can now start looking at my main program in what I need to do. Let's get rid of all of this. And I'm going to keep that for a second because I just want to refer to it as I'm going along. So this is going to be how to register a user. And what this is going to be adding a user to a file. So I've got that encoded. What I need to do now is take this line of code, write user file with user, but I need to find out what user is, and user is going to be just this function here, get user details. So I've got a key, I've got my user, I can get my details here. This is going to be encoded, and then I'm going to write it to the file. But I'm going to turn all of that into a function now, just these two lines, and I'm going to call it add user. Def add user. So let me copy those two lines, paste them into here and indent them. And now all I need to do is run add user. So I've got all my functions now to write something to a file. So at the moment, let's just keep this this comment at the moment. Not going to get rid of that just yet, just to make sure that this works. So we should now be seeing a file come on here called users, and everything in it should be encoded. So let's save that work and run it. Please enter a username, admin. Please enter a password. Let me in, and there we go. No errors, which is fine. So let's go and take a look at the file. I've got user.txt, so it's created the file. When I click on it, it's got our encoded details. So let's run this again and add a few more users. So what do we have? We had Jill, and hers was secret. There we go, Jill, secret. Let's run that again. Fred had password, I think. Fred. Oh, let's do my password. And there we go. So we can also sort of check the letters. Remember I said about not having two commas in. We could sort of have a check file by just asking for usernames and passwords and just typing in A or B and see what happens. And hopefully if we play around with the entire alphabet, because it's only going to work between A and Z in lowercase. We can see whether we're going to generate a comma or not. So that could be for our testing routines, but being aware of it is important. So as you can see now, we can create a new file and we can encode the details, save them in the file. Quite difficult to sort of look at it and decode it by hand, and particularly if we start doing harder sort of ciphers with keys of 2 or 3 or 4 or so on, but quite safe. And that's the beauty of playing around with coding and user files. Our next task really is to read this and decode it, and check whether we've got a user or not. And that can be quite strange. Not difficult, just strange, the method we have to use, because everything is in cipher. So we'll start looking at that in the next video.